She was the first non-sorority girl elected to be the head of the women's union. In the meantime, there was a man named John Burnside who was elected the head of the student body, of the whole student body. And of course they accused him of being a communist. I mean, they were after everybody. At that point, they elected Jackie Robinson, the head of the athletic union at UCLA. And they elected Woodrow Strode. What was his first name? Woodrow Wilson Strode, big, strong black man who was the captain of the football team. He was made student manager. Well, you can imagine this hit all the papers, and this was the first, boy, I really began seeing people after people. So anyway, here's Joy, and Mom and Dad, and they always said, well, now, Joy, we need to have a nice big party, and you can invite, you know, all your friends, and we'll invite Johnny Burnside and everybody. And so we all worked, I can remember, we all worked making paper flowers to put, because what they did at my home, we had a nice dining room, and they would pull a chandelier up, and they would dance in the dining room then. And everyone in our family played music. We were all trained in different music, and Mother said, no, an orchestra, we'll have to get an orchestra going tonight. And she called some of the ones she knew that played horns or things. Well, it came the time for the party. Joy said to Dad, well, Jackie Robinson told me they're coming. He's coming with Woodrow Strode, and they're bringing their girlfriends. And of course, this was a young lady eventually he married. Beautiful, Rachel. Beautiful. Now, our street had great big palm trees sort of on it. And I remember I mentioned the vacant lot here. Well, in front of the vacant lot, there was an old palm tree, kind of down here. He didn't have the biggest, newest car or anything, but I can remember I was watching for the first guest, of course. How old was I? 23, 33. I'm 10 years old, 9 years old. And my father said, now before they come, I want the twins get here. Blossom, get here. And my grandmother, in the meantime, sitting in the library and she had come down to live with our family when my father got sick. And my father stood us all up and he said, now I want you children to know that the finest black man in the United States right now is being recognized, and he should be, and you should be proud. He's coming to our home. And I don't want you to ever forget this, and I want you to shake his hand so you'll always remember. And then he looked at me and said, and Blossom, you're in charge of taking Jackie Robinson and the whole group in to meet your grandmother when they come. So there we are. Now, in the meantime, they parked their car down here, and he got out, and they all got out, and they came, and they were the first ones there. Joy wasn't even downstairs yet. She was still getting her flowers pinned on, you know. So they came in, and my mother greeted them, and my father greeted them, and I remember I greeted them, and I got pushed to the back a bit, you know, and everything, and they said how happy, and they had come, and they wanted to congratulate Joy, and they wondered, had John Burnside come yet? And we said no, and Dad said no, and then he asked me to take him in, and I took him in to introduce him to my grandmother. And she was so gracious and lovely and said, now, do you have work to do, or is it just a name? Yeah. I remember her saying that. Yeah. And he said, oh, yes, what he did. And they came out. Then everybody began coming. Well, they decided they would maybe go. And my mother said, you can't go. We're going to have an orchestra now. And Joy tells me, what was her name? I don't remember what. He later married her. She was a pretty girl. Rachel. Rachel. He said, Rachel, you can't go because we need you to play jazz. Because Portia doesn't play jazz. That was my sister, one of the twins. And we need you, and we understand that you play the trumpet, Jackie. And he said, yeah, he did. And then my father looked right at Woodrow Strode and said, I bet you anything you've got your drums in the trunk of that car out there. He said yes. Everybody went out, they brought the drums in, they stayed the whole evening in my home and played in the orchestra there with different young people that brought their horns. Parties were different then. And there wasn't a lot of drinking at my home, having a Mormon background. They had a punch, a good punch. Probably some of them were drinking on the side outdoors in the backyard, but it didn't matter. So that's my recollection, and of going just so excited that night